It's me working on mounting again, and he's pretty cool with me going all the way up on the mounting block, moving around, making noise. Now we're gonna just kind of work our way up to having my leg go over his back. So he's cool with taking treats on the other side. All this is really important first steps before I do that. And you've seen me go ahead and put like my knee on his back and then like part of my leg over. And now you can see my whole foot coming over. So now I can touch it and then I'll hop off and give him his reward. So what would have helped here is using the start button. So if I put a cone in front of him, he could touch it and then I could go ahead and get on. But I do like what he's doing here. He's kind of got his head down, kind of just facing forward. I could also use that as a start button as long as I make sure that that behavior is happening before I get on every single time. So I got to make sure, see he's putting his head down and then I could go ahead and get on. So I think that's what I'm working with right now. But if that's really unclear, then it would be helpful to just use a cone. So go ahead, put my leg over, and he's kind of looking at it. I think what happened there was the first time I put my arm over and give him that treat, and then the second time he's like, "Oh, it's the same thing." So I'm gonna touch that and get a reward. And I think in my mind I was like, "Oh, I don't want him to turn and look at that." So that, I mean, it wasn't a bad behavior, but it was just a miscommunication on our part. So really, I think it was probably good that I had him reach over, get a treat, and then touch my foot because I do want him to notice like, "Oh, foot's over there," and it's not a big deal, and he can target it and earn a reinforcer. But for me, I was thinking he's turning, he's getting he's like not getting away, but he's turning and then he's in a position to move away. When really that I should have thought of that as a good thing. So let him take a quick break, put some food in the bowl, and then we're gonna go ahead and move on to the saddle pad. So just a little bit of mounting, and then move on to some saddle pad work. So we did extensive saddle pad work before, specifically in the round pen and some out in the yard. We had some hiccups there here and there, but we've really gotten better, especially when he's out here. So he gets a little bit nervous when he's up against the panel and that kind of protected contact, which we're going to have to work on separately because I do plan once I'm actually putting the saddle all the way on and he's girthed up and everything, I do want his first few experiences to be in the round pen just for safety. But he does much better out here. I think he just has more space. So, but he's definitely gotten more duration with the pad, so I have him target it just like before, and then I go ahead and put it on his back, and we've built up the time that it can be on there. So throw that on. So we're getting like 10, 11 seconds on that, so that's pretty good. Um, Again, specifically for him, because he's a very sensitive horse. So you've seen in the past where we started with like one, and then when I went from like one to like five, he couldn't deal with that. So we had to do it really systematically. So, and I have that little Velcro strap that you put through your saddle. I'm just using that as like a little handle, so that works out really well. And I'm just reinforcing for him having the pad on his back. So while the pad's on his back, I'm clicking, taking off, and feeding. So I'm having him touch it. So there I'm presenting it to him. He touches it. I throw it up on his back very casually. And now he's to the point, since he's up to that high 10, 11 seconds, I can just put it on and I can reinforce while it's on his back. Because that was what we were having a problem with. In the beginning was it was too big of a time gap and he just didn't have that duration yet and then it scared him. So now we've gotten through that and it's much, much better. So that experience didn't completely scare him and take us back too much. So that's the another thing that I really like about clicker training. It builds up pretty good and it stays pretty solid as far as training goes, and especially with like time gaps as well. They remember it very well. So while it's on, we're clicking. I'm just giving him multiple reinforcers because it's on his back on his own. And we've built up that time in order to do that where I don't have to hold on to it just in case, make sure that I don't want him to have another experience like that, even though he does come back nicely from it and he didn't like hold on to a lot of fear. I just want to be careful and minimize those experiences as well. So, lots of reinforcers for having it on just on his own. And then we'll go ahead and work on I want him to do some following of the target, so moving around with the pad on. So just do some food refills here. Again, I'm just using soaked Timothy pellets. Um, he works really well for those. It's a pretty low value food, but he works good for that and doesn't get too excited about the food. So that's what I would recommend for most horses. See how it's like windy and it's blowing around? He doesn't care. That's what all of that, just like casually using the pad, throwing it around and stuff, is really good for. So the beginning of this is I'm just going to put it on for a second, have him follow the handheld target. I hold on to the little strap there, and then he goes forward. I'm clicking as the pad is on and he is moving forward, then I take it off and feed. So we'll just repeat that. Have him touch it with the start button. I also want to do this intermittent where he stands there for a second and then I reinforce because I don't want him to get in the habit of pad goes on and I walk forward. You could definitely inadvertently teach that, and we don't want that. I want him to stand still. I can put the pad on, I can put the saddle on, I can put myself on, and he stands there and waits. So that is important, especially when you're doing training like this and if the goal is to walk with the pad on and we're doing many repetitions, you can very easily get into that habit where you put it on and go. And we just want to be recognizing that and making sure that doesn't happen. So he's walking forward 2 steps. I'm clicking as he goes forward, pull it off casually, and feed him. So this looks fantastic. I'm very happy with what he's done, specifically with the pad, and just like everything else, he's done many repetitions. He's built up his confidence. We've done small steps, but it's paying off. So that's pretty cool. We're gonna do the same thing from the other side. I recommend doing everything from the other side. Even if you have a really quiet horse, do it from the other side. Even if you do less repetitions, just at least in the beginning, we'll do a few repetitions from the right side and then move on. Like with Dakota, when I was first saddle training her, putting the saddle on her, we did it from the other side as well. Now I just tack her up from the right side and I never put it on from the other side. But in the beginning, we did that same thing with mounting, just so it's not completely foreign and they do have some positive experiences with it. And then it doesn't really matter that much. And again, with Atlas, very sensitive. I want to make sure this works on both sides. So same thing, we're just starting with the standing, just like we did originally on the left side, is putting it on. I'm counting down in my head um, that the duration, and then I'm clicking, taking it off and feeding him. And then I'm also building up to where like now I can put it on and just feed him just over and over again because that's a big deal for him. Before, when I was just leaving the pad on, that was a scarier experience for him if you watched that video before. So now he's built up that duration and I can let go and it can stay on his back because I've built it up slowly. So ask him to touch it. He touches it. I don't just go put it on. I wait for him to touch it and then I put it on. That's his start button for this behavior. Then we're just going to click and feed and continually click and feed. So when the pad is on, we're just rapid fire feeding. And we built up to this. We don't want to just do this in the beginning because it could just be too uncomfortable, be too scary. And for Atlas, that would be true. So take it off, do a little bit more feeding, and just pairing the pad with the things. That's really what I want to do. Really with everything, with all behaviors, everything that I do with the horses, but that is the point of this. And he was so worried about things moving around him, things touching him, things being on his back. So this is definitely a huge deal from where we started. I love that he doesn't move when I take it off. Um, it flops around, it hits the cones, and he's totally cool with that. So same thing, we're gonna work on moving forward. Again, ask him to touch it. Perfect. I love how quick he was touching it. Like as soon as I held it out, he's like, yep, we can put that on. Great. So I like gauging their responses, and that's one of the big reasons I like start buttons. So then we'll ask him to walk on, and he takes one step. I'm clicking as he's taking that step and then taking it off and reinforcing. And this is also a good opportunity to work on your vocal cues. So start button, put it on. I want him to stand for a minute again because I don't want him anticipating and just going forward. Then I could just stand. And I want to be careful that I'm not always in the same body position too, because I want him to go off of that vocal cue so that we can have that once we start riding under saddle. So he won't be able to use my body language when I'm on his back. So if I sometimes stand and face him, sometimes I stand back, sometimes I stand forward, but I'm just saying walk on, that's his verbal cue to go forward. And then if he doesn't go forward, I can point and use the handheld target, but that's important to mix that up so that he's not going off of your body language and you just didn't realize it. Because I've definitely done that quite a bit. So just going to walk on. He does a couple steps. I'm clicking again as he moves forward. We kind of hit the cones, and he's totally cool with that. So really great progress with this, but very systematic, and make sure we do all the parts correctly.